Well, let's cross to Noga Tarnopolsky, our correspondent in Tel Aviv. Noga, great to talk to you this evening. I talked through the moments of the exchange, but this is not the way it was supposed to go, is it? Israel accusing Hamas of breaching the terms.
That's right. At the moment, both sides are accusing each other of violating the agreement. And today wasn't supposed to look the way it looked at all. Israeli civilians were supposed to be released today by the terms of the ceasefire agreement. We were told to expect, like last week, that it would be more towards the late afternoon. Israel had announced that it would release the corresponding number of Palestinian prisoners and that the bulk of them would be, quote, deported. We were told to Egypt. Everything turned out different. Hamas yesterday announced on its public Telegram channel that it was releasing these 4 IDF soldiers. Most of these 4 young women hadn't even managed to do a single shift on their base. They had just graduated from basic training. Liri Albag, the youngest of them, had graduated from high school 3 months before. And nobody really knew until Hamas's announcement yesterday whether they were alive or dead. Now, because Hamas changed these terms yesterday, there's great concern among Israelis about whether the civilians who are supposed to be released are even alive. And Qatar and Hamas tried to issue kind of reassuring statements today, but the failure to release one of those civilians, 29-year-old Arbel Yehoud, provoked Israel to not do its part of the deal. In other words, not allow Gazans to return back through the Netzarim corridor, this kind of empty no man's land that Israel has carved out of central Gaza. And Israel is not allowing Gazans to return to their former homes, the site of their former homes in the north. Hamas, meanwhile, continues to announce that transfer that people will be allowed to return tomorrow. And so we have heard, as you mentioned, reports of 1 dead, but I think the situation could get a lot worse because Hamas continues to encourage these are tens of thousands of people, at the least hundreds of thousands, to stream north, and Israel will be blocking them. Israel is demanding the release of Arbel Yehoud. Islamic Jihad holds her. They've made all sorts of claims that she's actually military. And right now, the Qataris are trying to clear through these obstacles.
So these two things are interlinked, Noga. The fact that you've got Hamas, Israel saying that Hamas breached the terms, the civilians, the female civilians should have gone first, children, and the fact that this didn't happen, with plus a response to that being that the Palestinians not able to move to the north, to which Hamas is saying, now you're breaching the terms, or at least delaying what's supposed to be happening.
That's exactly right. And this just adds to the volatility of the moment. There are very good indications that both Israel and Hamas still want this deal to go through. And it's possible, we have also indications that Hamas thought that despite the fact that it wasn't releasing the civilians who it was supposed to release today, by releasing 4 others, it was fulfilling its part of the deal somehow. In Israel, it's not being perceived that way.
No, good. I want to talk to you about the women a little bit more. But before we do, let's just listen to IDF spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari today. You touched upon it a moment ago. This is him criticising what he called a cynical display by Hamas today. He also said this worry about the fate of the youngest hostages. Let's take a listen.
Hamas failed to meet its obligations to first release Israeli female civilian hostages as part of the agreement. We are determined to return to the return of Arbel Yehoud, an Israeli citizen kidnapped from Nir Oz, and also Shiri Bivas and her 2 children, Kfir and Ariel, whose welfare we are extremely concerned about.
Noga, there's a cruel psychological aspect of warfare here when captives are taken, because you and I have spoke about this before. Those 2 little children, a 2-year-old Kfir and 5-year-old Ariel, given the statement, the urgency, the worry, this plays into the hands as well, doesn't it, of that psychological torture that we don't know the fate of those children.
That's right. We don't know the fate of the children or of their parents. And the fact that Hamas and Islamic Jihad today in their kind of supposedly reassuring statements, affirmed that Arbel Yehoud is alive and made no mention at all of any member of the Bibas family, has obviously heightened the concern here. I think the statement we saw earlier from the IDF spokesman was in part referring to that. Hamas was also supposed to transmit to Israel today a list of the 33 hostages that it is committed to release during this first phase of the ceasefire agreement, with notations about who is alive and who is dead. That Hamas has failed thus far to release that list. And this whole situation in which the Israeli families who are waiting for their loved ones have no idea who is alive and who is dead. I can tell you that until yesterday, Israel was rife with rumors, sourced who knows where, that Daniela Gilboa, one of the women who was in fact released today alive, was dead. And this caused her family agony, and they have spoken about it publicly.
I think I'm right in saying, Noga, just brief pointers on this. Danielle Gilboa, not too long ago, I think right at the start of January, she was involved in used as a hostage video as well. She was seen very angry, saying that the bombs were hitting close to her. And I just want to know what you made of these scenes today. We've spoken about how, last Sunday, the micromanaged scenes, how you think it compared, the women being shown on stage today.
Well, it was very different. Of course, last time Hamas was showing civilians being released, and they wanted to show women kind of threading their way through this throng. They did that. Today, what they wanted was to show off military trophies. So they put these young women in uniforms. Not that it really matters, but when they were kidnapped by Hamas from the same base to which they returned today, they were kidnapped in their pajamas. They weren't even armed. And so this was Hamas showing off that it is a mighty, powerful military force still today, and that it can parade in public its military trophies. I think that the media has learned a lesson and was less eager this week to just broadcast these Hamas videos with no comment about the context.
Always good to talk to you, Noga. Noga Tarnopolsky, our
Thank you.
correspondent in Tel Aviv.